That was Brandon Albert, Black Hearted Woman. You're listening to Sunday Morning Mic Check with Percussive Shock. Thanks for joining us today. We're waiting for Brandon Albert to join us here in a little bit, be able to ask some questions and listen to some of the songs, especially some of his new releases that are out there. We'll keep the music flowing here with a band that Brandon actually introduced to me a little while ago, and I've been loving all of the music ever since. This is Turnpike Troubadours with 7 and 7. That was Turnpike Troubadours with 7 and 7 from their album Diamonds and Gasoline. You're listening to Sunday Morning Mic Check with Percussive Shock, and I'd like to introduce everyone to Brandon Albert. He's joined us on the show here. So, Brandon, why don't you go on off mute and say hello to everyone?
Sean, can you hear me? Oh, there I am.
There we go.
How's it going this morning?
Doing well. How are you this morning?
I'm good, man. I'm good. Just getting on the backside of this cold / strep throat, whatever the hell I had. So, sound like hell, but I'm here.
Glad you can join us. I know something's been going around a lot recently. I'm getting over something myself here, but glad you can join us here. So we were listening to your song "Black Hearted Woman" at the top of the show here. For anyone, I guess that's familiar with your discography so far, I would say, me personally, I noticed that "Black Hearted Woman" was sort of a shift in your tone, being a little bit more aggressive. I'd like to understand, was that more of a conscious decision, or did that kind of grow organically as you wrote that song?
I guess just a lot of the music that I did listen to and kind of based my songwriting off of was country. And then there was definitely like more of an interest in bands like Alice in Chains and the heavier, kind of more grungier sound, a harder rock sound. So it definitely was a riff and sort of a tone inspired by the angstier bands that came after, or that came before them, I should say.
That's awesome. Yeah, I know that intro lick is kind of iconic. It's different. It's unique in terms of anything that you also have in your current discography right now. It's so as soon as you hear it, you know that it's Black Hearted Woman.
Yeah,
that's awesome. So we're actually going to play another one of your songs next here. This is Only a Lifetime. Why don't you talk a little bit about how this song came about?
Yeah, so Only a Lifetime actually was written just as a simple riff, actually based off of a literal 3-second chord change in Goodbye One More Time, one of the first song I ever released. And E minor, D, C, C, D, E minor, just kind of went and played back with those 3 chords and just kind of messed around with that cadence. And just for whatever reason, the words trying to create a dichotomy between whatever, starting a fire, keeping a fire going, and love just seemed whenever I had that idea in my head, the words just kind of kept coming out on the page in terms of how how love works, how a relationship works, and how it needs space to breathe, but so does a fire. And I don't know. Yeah, we can just give it a listen and see how that songwriting process went through, because really organically it just kind of came out. The first draft it came out of, there was very little editing after that. So whatever words you kind of hear come out was kind of the first word that really came to my head.
That's awesome. Yeah, and I remember even when we were putting it together as a band, it came together so seamlessly. It was like the drum part clicked in, Andre was able to lock in really quick with the bass, and it developed so organically and so naturally. I think it's one of the cool songs that we have in the songs that we play. So here is Only a Lifetime. That was Only a Lifetime by Brandon. Yeah, I remember recording that song, and I remember when we laid the bass tracks for it down, and we were adding extra sounds and things to make it sonically full. I remember one of the things at the beginning of that song with those intro drum tom hits that we added, those 808s, to make it really heavy. And I know that another friend of mine who I played the song for, another musician, was really impressed with how intense the percussion and the bass comes in at that song there. And I think it's a testament to your willingness to want to explore and try different things sonically. What are some things that you may want to try in upcoming releases in terms of different types of soundscapes or different types of tones?
Yeah, it's hard to know, because being a 3-piece, it's hard to get. I obviously ZZ Top and their Eliminator album, they started adding in some interesting sounds, which really, when you think about it, put them over the top in a sense. I'm sure their songwriting and singing and playing was all super tight. The songs were great, but they did decide to go in a different direction sonically, and that helped them out a lot. So it is hard to know exactly what I want to do to maybe have a similar trajectory as that, because the
Hmm.
music could definitely use a larger audience, and it's hard to know in the Texas region. Like they say, you got to have a fiddle in the band if you're going to play in Texas. Well, we're so far from that, and we got to find some middle ground that it's still the authentic, because that's really what Texas music is, needs to be at its core, is authentic.
Hmm.
So it's hard to put an exact finger on what becomes inauthentic and what is authentic. But anything that puts the music up and into a more authentic, wider audience that can appreciate what we're doing, I'm down for it. So the short answer is I don't really know.
Yeah, I guess it's all part of the discovery process as we're working in the studio and just see how songs naturally develop. We'll sort of dictate that sound as it comes up.
Yeah, yeah, definitely try to play more with even just rather than tone. I let the tone kind of happen in the studio, which maybe that's not a great thing, but let the imagination and the creativity happen, like right there with me and you sitting there listening to it. But really try to change things up more at home in terms of the what the words are saying. Like I've got a couple in the bank that are very sweet songs, some that are very like I'm drinking because you're gone kind of songs. So
Hmm.
it's almost just a variety. I try to bring in a variety of word choices. Even the song we just released is more of an alt rock song, alternative rock
Hmm.
song. I think people say playing whack a mole with sounds.
Seeing what sticks. Yeah, and it's actually funny that you mentioned ZZ Top because that's actually who we're going to be listening to next year from the Eliminator album. This is "Give Me All Your Lovin'." Brandon, we got a question from the chat here. This is from at Aga Khan. This is, what do you write first, the lyrics or music? And as a follow-up question, what musicians do you listen to for inspiration?
That is such a good question and impossible to answer because it changes all the time. For me, as of recent, I would say it's been the music. I'd say the last three songs have been a chord change or a riff or an idea that kind of spread. And then there's a great video I would liken it to where there's a lady who's babbling, but she's got all the feel in the world to like these chords that she's playing over. And it's kind of like that. It's almost like babbling words. Certain words are sticking out, and you kind of nail down if there's something kind of interesting that happens, you kind of just focus on that and
Mm-hmm.
then kind of goes from there. But for me, definitely the music is what's happening first. Um, the second half of that question, I would say it was musical influences, right?
Yes.
That was it's a huge wide range for me because I've been like an 80s hair metal guy for like a very long portion of my childhood, listening to that with my dad in the car. And then that turned into like meeting a guy in a band that I used to be in who used to play with Jerry Cantrell of Alice in Chains. And that took me on like a huge Alice in Chains, like grunge era, all the way up to like, I used to listen to Three Doors Down and that whole like Breaking Benjamin era style of music, but I could also like listen to 99.5 The Wolf in Dallas country
Mm-hmm.
station and just sing every song from 1995 to like 2008, I would say. Really stopped listening to mainstream country radio in like the mid tens, I would say, like
Mm-hmm.
2015 or so. But it spans so much. But I do know the market that we're in, so I do know it has to be kind of rock, kind of authentic sort of country. We're definitely getting out of like steel guitar and starting to go more into heavier guitar. So uh,
Mm-hmm.
just yeah, it spans everything. I think most musicians who have been doing music for a decent length of time will tell you probably the same thing.
That's awesome. It's actually I've seen other musicians do that too, where they're working on the music and they don't have the lyrics. Actually, one in particular I'm thinking of is when the Foo Fighters. I remember watching one of their documentaries and Dave Grohl. I think they were in the, and he was just kind of babbling like that too. And maybe there would be a word or something that sticks, and then he kind of writes that down and becomes an anchor point for him to try to work on things. So yeah, I think that seems to be kind of a natural thing that I think a lot of singer songwriters do, is they know the melody, they hear it in their head, and I think it does, at least when the music I've written also has come from a point of melody first, rather than trying to try to fit words or try to put music to words that I already have written there. I find that extremely difficult in a lot of cases.
Yeah, I find myself having to edit a lot of phrasing, which sometimes it's almost just like going through, like if you did like an English paper in college or high school or whatever, it's just another draft of like, should you use these two words together? Do they say the same thing already? And it's getting it as lean as possible to get it down to like an industry standard is she like 3.5 minutes, instead of having a whole bunch of verses and choruses that are all saying the same thing. Just move it along faster, which is, it's all part, this whole part of the game. It's all part of the fun of writing a song.
Yeah, definitely. Very cool. So we'll keep this going here. We're going to actually listen to a band that's also from the DFW area. I'm actually friends with their singer guitarist here, Josh Fleming. This is Vandaliers. They are exploding right now. Their latest album, self-titled, has been released. They've just been on tour. All kinds of great guys. I think they just finished a run with Mike and the Moon Pies here. This song is Before the Fall. It's my favorite from their newest album. Hope you all check it out. That was Vandaliers with Before the Fall. Brandon, earlier we were talking about the style of Texas country music, and we also listened to earlier in the playlist here Luke Combs. And when you found me, I was a novice to like country music in general. I come really from more of a rock background in general, and it's been great, learning all about all these different artists and everything. But how would you particularly classify red dirt music, and what are some of the common things that you would listen to, from an artist that's trying to fit within that genre?
Yeah, it's interesting. The term red dirt for many years has been discussed what that really means. And it's less tone, less what your sound is, and it's more like attitude of what you're singing about.
Mm.
And so it's to me, truly, it's just like if it's not like a Nashville like love song, every song in your discography or whatever, if it's more about the hardship of life, like you don't have a lot of money, you don't have a record deal, you don't have anything but just the life experience to rely on, and maybe it hasn't been perfect, and you kind of hear more of the pain in the voice, or more the whatever that life experience is that you're singing about. It's really more thematic than it is tone, because you can go as wide as like Cross Canadian Ragweed to George Strait, and people might all consider that Texas country. I think a lot of people know Cross Canadian Ragweed or Cody Canada's from Oklahoma, but they get lumped in together so much, and there's such a cross in there. But yeah, they can have fiddle, they can have pedal steel, they can just be straight up rock like Whiskey Myers. They might be more southern rock, but yeah, I think the themes are all the same. It's either like not necessarily a honky tonk lifestyle, but just the lifestyle of people who live out, maybe not the metroplexes, maybe more the simpler, the types of experiences that come in with living that kind of life.
Awesome. Gotcha. Cool deal. Well, let's keep this show going here. We're actually going to listen to a live track here of Randy Rogers Band this time around. This is, I know, a song that we cover here. And actually, I really like this arrangement here because it also has Cody Canada, who joins and sings the second verse here. Let's listen to this song. We got time for one more track here. I want to just thank everyone for joining in on the Sunday morning mic check. I want to thank Brandon Albert for spending his Sunday morning with us here. Brandon, before we introduce this last track here, do you want to introduce people on your socials, and do you want to let anybody know where you're playing next?
Yeah, so full band, we're playing in Mountain Fort Brewery in Broken Bow, Oklahoma on December 2nd. And the first part of that question, I don't remember. Repeat that.
If you want to share where people can follow you on your socials.
Oh, yeah, man. Yeah. Facebook, you can find Brandon Albert Music, Instagram, Brandon Albert Music, TikTok. Brandon Albert music. My best videos on there are not even music related, and enjoy the comedy on there. And I think just anywhere you can stream music, Apple Music, Amazon Music, Spotify, all that stuff.
Very cool. Thanks, Brandon. All right. So, last song here that we're going to listen to that takes us out is going to be your latest release. This song is called All Lies, Not Enough. Why don't you talk a little bit about how this song came about?
Yeah, this one, I don't know, kind of had like an early 2000s rock inspired sort of riff there at the beginning. And it definitely was like starting, like I said earlier, like kind of the kind of music, the words in the music that I wanted to create. It being like some songs being very sweet, some songs being kind of angsty and over someone or whatever. This was definitely that song, and this song had been ruminating really for a long time in different forms and different chord structures that I've kind of had written, and this one definitely took it away. Finally, settled on this one, and I think it turned out really good.
Yeah, I really like it. I think it sounds great. Everybody I've played it to has really enjoyed the sound. I think it's a really strong track. So can't wait to listen to it. But before we're going to go ahead and let this song end our show here. But thanks everyone for listening in. You can follow me here on AMP directly at Percussive Shock. Next Sunday we'll have another show here. We're actually going to be diving a little bit deeper into some of my favorite songs from the jazz fusion area of the 1970s here. So definitely want to check that out if you want to listen to something a little bit different here. But thanks, Brandon, again, for spending your time with us today. And here is your latest track, All Lies, Not Enough. Thanks for listening.